Good evening, everybody. Straight to my collar. Evening, everybody. This is the latest Facebook Live, my latest Facebook Live, 18th of April. After Easter, lots been going on. It's been 3 weeks since last one. We've got a good record now. Every 3 weeks we do one of these. And it's me answering your pre-submitted questions and questions live as we go on. As with all of the last ones that we've done this year so far, joined by Jamie, who is going to ask me questions on your behalf, make sure I answer them, ask the follow-ups, and means I get to talk to you and not have to try and keep scrolling through Facebook and all of that. Mm-hmm. So, as ever, we'll give it a couple of minutes before we dive into the questions.
How was Parliament this week, Anthony?
Parliament's been good. First week back after Easter. I've had constituents down, people from Burnley and Padiham, been down in Parliament on Tuesday morning. I had a young chap down who's been down before, really good to catch up with him. Wednesday morning, 2 constituents down, so we did a bit of a walk around, showed some of the historical features.
Oh, so you did tour with them?
Yeah, and then went for a cup of coffee. And then yesterday evening, Burnley College and some of the other Lancashire colleges, Myerscough, Runshaw, and they were down in Parliament. I was hosting a dinner for them. So that was really good. We talked a lot about further education, apprenticeships, FE funding, because essentially, if we're going to do what I think we ought to do and make sure apprenticeships and vocational qualifications are on a par with university and academic qualifications, we've got to make sure our colleges are brilliant places to go and study, equivalent to the best Russell Group universities. And we're lucky in Burnley. We've got one of them, and it's growing massively. But we want to do that all across Lancashire.
Well, you've been saying that for quite a while. I remember it. You've said it a few times in the paper, on Facebook, about the silver bullet of education and stopping the brain drain from Burnley, people having to move away because they want education. So
well, and when you look at it, we might come on to some of this in the questions, but so on Tuesday I was at the Business and Trade Committee. I know some people who follow me on Facebook would have seen me at Business and Trade Committee before, when we've been doing post office inquiries, which have been some of the slightly more heated sessions, if I can put them that way. Yeah. But this week we were doing one on industrial strategy, and there was a report out this week, which is brilliant, that shows manufacturing, massive for our area, is an even bigger contributor to the UK economy. So it's about a quarter of the economy is manufacturing based. 7.3 million jobs.
Is that what it is? A quarter?
Quarter of the UK economy is manufacturing based.
I'm really surprised about that as well.
7.3 million jobs, more than £500 billion worth of economic output. We're now the 4th largest exporter in the world and the 8th largest manufacturer in the world. We've beaten France when it comes to manufacturing, and we've beaten almost every other country bar 4 when it comes to exports.
I saw this, and I also saw we got told, didn't we, a few years back, that taking certain decisions, the international trade would fall off a cliff. But it's interesting to see that 7th in 21, and now we're 4th in 2024. We're
shooting up the tables, and it's because of that. Made in Britain, services provided in Britain, they're a hallmark of quality. It doesn't matter whether we're talking financial services, professional services, aerospace parts, you name it, chemicals, medicines and pharmaceuticals, we punch well above our weight. And I think we should be proud of it as a country. We should talk ourselves up and not talk ourselves down as some of our political opponents.
100%. So there has been a question come in, but before I get to Debbie's question, I will get to it, Debbie. There has been a few people that have commented on the post you put out 2 days ago now, I think it is.
Asking for questions.
Asking questions, cool. Basically asking a number of things. So to kick-start it off... Just
as a reminder to everyone watching, ask questions as I'm answering. Jamie will read through the comments and ping the questions to me. That's where it works.
Yeah, happy days. So Susan asked you... she's asking about Padiham Town Council. Yeah. Basically, the Padiham Town Council have the precept, like the other parish councils, Hapton and Worcester, you have. She's asking where that money goes, because she thinks it's a lot, and she's questioning what it's for, and so that's Susan's question, so I thought I'd just put that to you.
Good question, Susan. So everyone will be getting their council tax bills through at the minute. I've had mine through, and you're right, so I pay a precept to Hapton Parish Council, because that's where I live. essentially, Susan, I don't know. It's for Paddy and Town Council or any of the parish councils to justify that precept to its residents, particularly if they're increasing it. My advice would be head along to one of the Paddy and Town Council meetings. You know, like all council meetings and like Parliament, they're open to the public. You can go there. There's a public question time and ask the question. I think that ultimately is, you know, I think about what my values are, and I think transparency is why I do Q&As like this, right? Ask me anything. And I think that should be true of everyone in elected office, everyone making decisions, particularly when those decisions are to do with household, family finances. So I don't know how much Paddy and Town Council charge on a precept per house, but my advice would be head along to a meeting, ask the question, and I would say hold them to account. But you might go there and think, my God, these guys are brilliant. They're spending it on all the great things we do. You know, you think about some of the stuff Paddy and Town Council put on, like, you know, around Armed Forces Day, the painting in Padiham. You know, Padiham got some brilliant stuff going. Padiham on Parade. So, you know, I have no doubt that the Town Council does some really good things, but you should definitely go and ask them what they're spending your money on. And if you're happy or unhappy with it, tell them. Because that's what, you know, that's what those of us in elected office should hear.
Well, on local government funding, a lot of people have been asking about pothole money. So you'll have seen over the past few days, I think the Telegraph ran with a story on this, basically about the HS2 money being redirected towards local transport projects.
Yes.
Part of it's coming for pothole money, Anthony, and we've got a few people that have asked you, where is the money for Burnley?
Yeah, okay. Just before I come into that, I do just want to say on council tax and council funding, because it is really important, because you'll hear lots of people say otherwise. Every single year since I've been the Member of Parliament, we have secured an increase in the government grant from government to Burnley Borough Council and Lancashire County Council. Yeah. So Burnley Borough Council and Lancashire County Council get more money from government today than they did when I was elected in 2019. That's a good thing, and it means they ought to be careful when they're raising council tax. But I just wanted to put that on record because, again, sadly, my political opponents take every chance they can to go out there and say that councils are starved of cash. And,
you hear that too much.
Well-run councils are well-run and are financially stable, and you know, I would say this, but Conservative councils deliver better value for money than Labour-run councils. On potholes, yeah, absolutely right. So Prime Minister announced last year the Phase 2 northern leg of HS2, which was for Birmingham through to Manchester. That was going to be cancelled, and the money that would have said, we're talking tens of billions of pounds, is all being reinvested into decent northern transport. So that's transport that you, I, everyone watching is going to use, rather than this HS2 white elephant, which pre-COVID, you know, when it was first designed, probably had some justification because train usage was on the up. Now people work from home more. You know, there's not the same demand for that level of rail travel. You know, rail travel is still lower than it was pre-COVID. So why are we going to spend tens of billions of pounds? So I think the Prime Minister was right to cancel it, right to put it into northern projects, including potholes. So in total, I think the pothole allocation or road maintenance allocation for Lancashire was about 240, I think it was 244 billion pounds over 11 years. Now there was an article in the press.
Million, not billion, right?
Million. 244 million. Billions of pounds in total,
yeah.
244 million of that, so a quarter of a billion for Lancashire. Yeah, well.
Don't want people coming on being like, you said.
Yeah, that would be impressive.
Yeah.
So, yes, there was an article earlier this week, I think it was the Lancashire Telegraph, that basically said Burnley's getting none of this HS2 money and our roads are going to be left to rack and ruin. It's not true. Categorically not true. The County Council has a highways budget for roads of 40 billion. It's now increased to 50 billion. That article was about 10 million of that. It ignored the other 40. So I've gone to Lancashire County Council. I've asked them for a list of the roads that are going to be done both major potholes, resurfacing, road dressing. I've asked them for that list so that I can share it with them, because I think it's really important we dispel myths. And look, if it comes back that there's no Burnley Road on there, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be on Facebook, on social media, meeting with the county council to tell them it's ridiculous. But I know it's not true. I know we've got resurfacing works done. And let's not forget, that article was about 10 million, not the 50.
Out to the 50.
And it was about 1 year, not the decade of funding that the money's there for.
Yeah.
So it's not saying that of £244 million, nothing's going to Burnley. What they're saying is the first 10 of this 244 million, we've not yet found a road in Burnley. Now, to me, that's poor journalism, right? Because I think you can ask the county council questions and get more information and say, right, okay, give us your road plan for the next year, the whole 50 million, and they could have written that article. So, look, I'm going to keep fighting for Burnley and Padiham and our villages, because I drive the same roads everyone else drives.
And you do need it. Some of them need
100%. You drive on some of our roads, just near the fire station is particularly bad at the minute. Outside Tesco in Burnley was quite bad. Although I think they've done one of them recently. So I'm going to keep being a pain in the to Lancashire County Council to make sure that they're prioritising our roads. The rationale for the state of our roads is it's very wet in Lancashire. Well, in East Lancashire, we're probably the wettest part of the whole county. That, to me, tells you need to be investing your money in making sure that roads across Burnley, as well as the other boroughs of East Lancashire, are decent. So I'm going to keep going to bat on that.
Well, just on this point, Aleda and Kate both mentioned 2 roads.
Go on.
Both in Padiham. I agree with both of them on this. Slade Lane,
yes,
hopefully on the list, and also Moor Lane in Padiham. It's urgent. I know Alan's been on with that as well. And
yeah.
You've been
Look, so I've set up a whole section of my website. If you go on my website, right up at the top or in the menu bar if you're on a mobile, it's called Road Watch. Go on there, report the street to me, because I send all of them to Lancashire County Council, and that's the way we get roads resurfaced, right? It's everyone reporting them on the Love Clean Streets app. Report them to me, I'll report them, and the more people that do it, the more they've got to send inspectors out to find the roads, and ultimately that's how we make our roads better. But so to answer the original question about are we getting some of this HS2 money for our roads and potholes in Burnley and Padiham and the villages, 100% we are, and I will keep everyone updated when I find out which roads they are, what's being done when, is it potholes, is it full road resurfacing, because I think it's really important. But I am going to make one other point on this. All these road maintenance projects do come with roadworks, and so I'm very sorry about that, because look, it frustrates all of us, right? It frustrates us when we've got all these potholes, but it is also incredibly frustrating when you can't get in and out of Burnley because all the key roads are jammed up with temporary lights and blocks and stuff, and all it needs is some proper planning. And so I keep making both points to Lancashire County Council, and in fact tomorrow, because we've got the Burnley Town Board, Lancashire County Council sit on that, and I'll be making these very points to them. And to be fair to them, they're very receptive. They're always very keen to work with me on these things. So, I have no doubt that we will get our fair share of the pothole money and the road resurfacing money. Will it be as quick as everyone wants? Definitely not, because like everyone else, I want all these potholes gone.
Yeah, I was going to say everyone wants it yesterday, don't they? So.
Yeah, and rightly so.
Yeah. So Debbie asks, it's quite a big topic. There's a number of people you've been speaking to about this already, I know. But Debbie's asking about SSB law.
Yes.
You made a load of noise about SSB law in Parliament. I know you've been to meetings and things with the... Debbie probably has been at one of your meetings, Anthony. But she's
I think Debbie was at the Landmark, if I remember.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, she's asking, will you be at Parliament on the 14th of May to support the victims?
I don't see why I won't be at Parliament, but why don't I just give a brief update on SSB?
Give the update on SSB.
SSB generally. Yeah. And so I've been writing a letter on SSB to go to everyone who's contacted me. So, excuse me, anyone watching who's raised SSB with me, expect to get a letter in the post in the next couple of days, probably early next week, given we're on Friday tomorrow. But I've had responses now from Ministry of Justice, Department for Levelling Up, Solicitors Regulation Authority, Legal Ombudsman, Association of British Insurers. We are making some progress. So in terms of the legal process, I think I said on the last one, everyone needs to make sure they lodge a claim with the legal ombudsman. Really, really important.
Yeah.
And the letter I'm sending out, most people will have done it, but I'm going to include a link in there that says, please make sure you go to this link and lodge your case. The same is true for the Solicitors Regulation Authority. We want to make sure people lodge a complaint with the SRA about SSB law, because that puts you in the legal system. So if the Regulation Authority finds that there's been malpractice and negligence, the SRA has a compensation scheme. The legal ombudsman has the ability to do that as well. So that's really important. The Association of British Insurers has told me that they've gone out and spoken to some of their members. And obviously it's very difficult because there's lots of insurers covered, but they're hearing that some insurers are taking quite a pragmatic approach. There's discussions among some about whether they can look at these costs and discount them and do stuff like that. There's also negligence claims gone in against SSBs, insurers for professional negligence, so that's following through. Again, all of this will be in the letter, so if you're not following me, don't worry, I'll put it all in there. And then with government, so that's the legal issue. If you're watching this and you're thinking, this all sounds great, but I'm still looking at a bill and I still don't know what to do, please go and get legal advice. If you're in Burnley, the Citizen Advice in Burnley, they've been in touch with me, brilliant team of people. They're able to give advice if you've received one of these court orders to pay money. If you're unsure what to do, they've got drop-in clinics, both in the Calico building, which is next to the bus station, and at downtown, which is inside Charter Walk. Again, it's going to be in the letter that I send out to everyone, so they can give advice. And then with the government part of it, I spoke to Minister Rowley, who's a minister in Department for Levelling Up. Yeah. He's looking at it. He's asked his officials, because there's not one department that looks at this, right? We've got the Ministry of Justice, which looks after the legal side of things, the Business Department, the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, which is responsible for some of the cavity wall insulation, and then the Department for Levelling Up, which is responsible for building regulation. So there's 4 government departments all looking at this. So what they've done is they've got officials from all 4 to come together. They've got a meeting in the next couple of weeks, and they're going to discuss, is there more that, or is there something government can do to try and help this process? I've asked to be kept updated on it, and as soon as I've got a further update from them, I'll send it out to everyone. But again, I've included details of what they've told me in the letter that gets sent out. So there is still lots going on. I will make sure that I am available in London to meet anyone from Burnley who's travelling down. Of course I will. But hopefully that's helpful. But do keep an eye out for the letter that's coming. I've had, since we last did the Facebook Live, a couple of people from outside Burnley have emailed me to say they're impacted by SSB. I will make sure you get the letter too. But again, please make sure you go and tell your local Member of Parliament as well, because the more members of Parliament involved, the better it is.
I mean, that's pretty comprehensive, Anthony. But like you say, if you didn't take all that in, you're going to put it in a letter.
It will all be in a letter.
Yeah, okay. That's good. So I guess that's the SSB. That's the SSB thing. Steve asks a simple question, he says. For you to get back as a Burnley MP, just promise that you will press 100% for Burnley to reopen as an A&E hospital again. You would be re-elected in a landslide, says Steve. What's your take on that?
Steve, I would love to make that promise. Do you know, I was asked, I had some work experience in my office a couple of weeks ago, and a young chap, and I said, come and interview me and you can write it up like you're a journalist and we'll put it on the website, and it's on there. I'll actually put a link to it in the comments afterwards. A young chap named Will. And one of his questions to me was, if you could go back in time and be a Member of Parliament at any point in history, when would it be? And, you know, your mind goes back to some really interesting points in history. You know, wouldn't it be incredible to be a Member of Parliament when Winston Churchill was Prime Minister, to listen to his oration in House of Commons? But my answer was 2006-07, when Labour made that disastrous decision, and it was genuinely disastrous, to close the A&E and do it in such a way as to make it almost impossible to bring A&E provision back. Look, I have raised it in Parliament. I have raised it, in every meeting I've had with a Secretary of State for Health. I actually asked a Minister for Health about it just a couple of weeks ago, because I think everyone watching this knows, if you look at the A&E stats in Blackburn, they're really busy. It's rare to see them under 100 people in the department, and that means wait times in A&E are totally unacceptable. So the best thing we can do to improve that, I would say, is transfer more work to places like Burnley and, minor injuries unit at Accrington, the primary care centre in Rosendale. I'm all for all of that. But in Burnley, we've got an incredible facility and we need to do more of it. If I can bring back the A&E, you can rest assured that, I wouldn't do it for the politics. I'd do it because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for healthcare locally. But I don't believe in promising something unless I think I can genuinely deliver it. And because I think that's what politicians do all the time, and it's terrible. So if it becomes something that I think is realistic, absolutely, I'm going to go and be banging on the door to do it. But in the meantime, that doesn't mean that we should sit by and allow the current situation to continue. So a couple of weeks ago, I led a group of colleagues so I wrote a letter to the Department for Health about A&E for East Lancashire, because obviously that's all centred in Blackburn. So a number of colleagues from the area signed it. We've got a meeting with the Minister for Health, who covers accident and emergency, at the end of this month, along with the Trust and the ICB. I got an email about it yesterday evening, because I think we can do far more at Burnley than we're doing right now. So, whether that becomes an urgent care plus and it's one step off an A&E or what, that's what I want to see. We shouldn't forget that reopening an A&E is a massive undertaking, because you've got to have an ICU and all the other wards that feed off it. So it's not, I'd love it if it was you just build one building and that becomes your A&E. That'd make it really easy, but it's not. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying. It doesn't mean there's not options there. So, Steve, I'm with you. I'm with you, buddy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope that answers Steve's question, because you kind of are saying you are pushing for 100%, but it's the promise that
I just can't. I don't believe it would be fair. And if any politician, we had this in 2010, right? A politician promising it and not being able to deliver it, and it destroys trust in politics. So if any politician tells you they're going to reopen it, unless they've got the probably £1 billion it would cost to do it, they're lying to you. So you've got to have someone who's willing to put the effort in, who knows how to work with government to incrementally creep back to it, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Cool. There's a number of people who've commented on things that you've already spoken about. I'll just let you know what's been said. So Jean makes a point saying on potholes, do the county council quality check the pothole repairs, as some of the work is poor?
I will ask that question for you, Jean. I hope so.
So James is asking, have you spoke with Paul Maynard this week? He's had a conversation with him regarding the failings with the cavity installation claims. I'm not sure whether James has missed the part where you give the on SSB.
I was with Paul Maynard last night. He came to the dinner I hosted for Lancashire Colleges, but he didn't mention it. But I will ask him, and I'll make sure he gets all the information as well.
Okay. And then this is I'll put it to you. Andy Higgy says to you, can we trust someone to run the country who didn't get voted in by his own party and was beaten by Liz Truss? National topic, but
look, everyone knows where I was in the leadership election. I make no bones about it. But I think Rishi is I think he's a top guy who is doing an incredibly difficult job and doing it well. But Rishi's been to Burnley 3 times. Now, that's more than I think any Prime Minister in modern history. And he comes and he cares. And every time he comes, he remembers what we've spoken about both in Parliament and the last time he was here. So do I think people can trust him? Yeah, I do, right? He tells it how it is. And, we shouldn't forget Rishi's the guy who, when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, he protected thousands, more than 10,000 jobs here in Burnley and Padiham through the furlough scheme. That at the time was the most transformational thing. If you remember back to it, when Rishi stood up as Chancellor and said, the state is going to pay everyone's wages to stay at home, almost everyone went, that's bonkers, and that's never been done before. And he did it, and it was, not only did he manage to lead a government department that then delivered that in record time, but it protected the economy, it protected jobs, it protected families here. And he's given that same drive to everything he's doing. And he's honest when he's not able to hit his targets, and he gets as frustrated as the rest of us do when you make a promise, pledge to do something, and it doesn't get delivered. I know Rishi's got the backing of the whole party because, you know, we're a family at the end of the day, and we can disagree sometimes over the who's who and who should be in what job. But when the captain then takes over, everyone gets behind the captain. You know, there's a good football analogy in there somewhere about, you know, you change the manager. People might not always be happy at the moment that manager changes, but you know, everyone settles in pretty quickly and goes, well, we got to get behind our team.
Well, that kind of links to Sandra's question, which is about Burnley Boys and Girls Club receiving £1 million of funding. Hopefully it'll be help with antisocial behaviour. But it just links in because Rishi visited Burnley Boys and Girls Club, didn't he? When the £1 million announced, I think it was last October.
Last October he came to Burnley to see Burnley Boys and Girls Club. It's getting £1 million from the Youth Investment Fund. And I mean, he's actually sat on the board of a Burnley Boys of a Boys and Girls Club. So I mean, Rishi knows youth provision and clubs and the voluntary sector more than I suspect any prime minister in our history. You know, he cares like we care. He's, you know, there's always this perception that prime ministers are these lofty people, totally detached. That's not my experience of Rishi.
It's not mine when I met him.
No, you've met him.
Yeah, it weren't mine.
My experience of Rishi is he's a guy who cares, who wants to do the right thing. And by cares, I mean cares about places like Burnley. And I wouldn't say that if I didn't genuinely believe it. But in every conversation I have with him, he gets what I'm talking about. He wants to make a difference and he's happy to engage. In fact, not even happy to engage. He wants to get into the detail.
Yeah.
And if someone wants to get into the detail on Burnley and Padiham and what we're doing and what we need, then I'm more than happy to oblige them.
Well, taking it back locally, and I agree with Diana on this one, the illegal use of dirt bikes and scooters needs to be seriously addressed. It's not just kids and youths, adults are riding them to where they shouldn't. You take any area, there'll be someone saying it. Town centre, Hapton, Moore, you know, there's places. How do we address it is the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard, and I wish there was a political answer to it. There's not, right? How do you deal with any problem like that? It's through enforcement and good policing.
Intel.
Yeah, good intel. So, you know, if people know where they are, phone it into the police, 101, or email them. Let them know, because that all builds a picture. The police do some really good stuff, actually. So they told me, it was a couple of times ago that I met them, but they've actually gone to the petrol stations, because none of these things work without petrol in them. So, now, well, yeah, apart from the electric ones, but for the dirt bikes, as an example, you'll see signs in lots of petrol stations that say, the police have asked us not to sell fuel to anyone on a vehicle without a licence plate, because most dirt bikes don't have licence plates. Yeah. It'd be really easy if they did, because you wouldn't need to try and trace the owner if they've got a licence plate. So where the police can, I think they're doing quite a lot, but they rely on intelligence from, you know, me when people feed it to me, local councillors, residents when they see it. So, you know, there's not a political answer to how we deal with dirt bikes and e-scooters and e-bikes. It's, you know, e-scooters, e-bikes aren't allowed on the public highway as is, but we see them, and so it's an enforcement issue. We obviously need to look at where people are buying them, but for an e-scooter that might be possible. For a dirt bike where you're going to, you know, a garage essentially, it's a very different problem. So it's all working with the police.
It is. It's because every time you think you're fixing one issue, you create another one. So a lot of this conversation has been about, well, close off these areas, close off that areas. But as people know, like it then impacts horse riders, for instance, and then the next issue, and then the next.
So that's why you need the police to get in at the root cause, right? Find the people who are engaging in this, and even if it's not illegal, it's definitely antisocial. I mean, it's illegal to be riding a dirt bike without a license plate on the road. It's illegal to be on an e-scooter, an e-bike. on a road. But even if you manage to, someone's not doing one of those things and doing something slightly different, it's almost certainly antisocial behaviour. So that's where the police have a difficult but necessary job to do. And, as with all these things, if the police ever come to me and say, we could tackle this, but we've not got the right powers, or our guide to take that to the home, let's change it up. Here's what the police are telling me they need. And often, if you say that, the Home Secretary will go straight to the Police Chief's Council and go, right, look into it. And if that's true, come back to me.
Yeah. Okay, Stephen's asking if you will support the financial compensation scheme for LGBT and military veterans. I'm not too up on this. Basically, it's the removal of the financial cap that some other MPs and Lords are trying. They seem slow on the recommendation from Lord Etherton. Do you know anything about this?
Yeah, the Etherton Review. Yeah, so a horrible piece of British history where LGBT members of the armed forces were essentially hounded out and not able to serve their country despite wanting to, or during their period of service were made to feel, were made to be very uncomfortable. A really awful stain on an otherwise exemplary organisation as the British Armed Forces. So the Etherton Review is about putting all of that right. Let me go away and look at the actual amendment. I know, and Ben Wallace, one of our Lancashire MPs, when he was Secretary of State for Defence, he was the one who stood up in the House of Commons and announced this review. And he didn't just announce it, he offered a full apology at the dispatch box of the House of Commons, which is a very rare thing to happen. But such was his feeling about the injustice that had been caused and the need to put things right. So he did that, and he said they were going to work through it at pace. And I know from talking to colleagues that the government is 100% behind it still. But let me go away and look at the amendment.
Okay, this one is from Faye, and it's all about the telegraph poles. You've heard this before. How about the telegraph poles that are going up, BRSK and various other companies? And she tags a friend of hers, Angela, I think. What's the situation? Yeah. How about it, is what she's saying.
Yeah, incredibly frustrating, Faye, Angela. There'll be so many residents who experience this. And, essentially it's been a problem since I got elected, and it doesn't really matter how hard you try. You can get some move, but not others. So there's a piece of legislation called the Code. A network operator, essentially like a telecoms company, can put up infrastructure. Now, in general, that's a good thing, right? We all want a good mobile phone signal and good internet. The problem comes when you get these, how would I describe them? We'll call them startup companies, but I think they're slightly cowboy, and they throw telegraph poles up everywhere, and instead of using existing infrastructure or sharing infrastructure, they're just throwing up poles. Now, I actually am now coming to the conclusion, having kept kind of looking and pushing where we can, I think they might be breaking the code by not sharing infrastructure. So I've asked the Secretary of State, who covers this area, to look into it. I'm also going to write to Ofcom to ask them to look into it. And I always write to the company, whether it's IX Wireless Build or BRSK, when residents contact me. So I wish I could promise a quick, immediate solution. What I can tell you is I'm determined to try and figure out whether they are breaching their legal obligations, because I can't believe that throwing up telegraph poles within a metre of each other, as is the case in some places, that to me strikes me as, if it's not outside the letter of the law, which I think it might be, it's definitely outside the spirit of the law.
Yeah, because this is the thing. Even if they're nice people who are running these companies, I don't know, but even if they're nice people, it's a little bit retro. It's going backwards, isn't it?
Yeah,
putting up poles. You look back in time. That's what
yeah, I totally get it
for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand that it is not always possible to go underground. Right, it's not always possible. That is very expensive. If there are existing underground ducting, for BT and other companies, absolutely use it.
Yeah.
And if we can get new underground ducting to connect new properties, absolutely do that. But there is always going to be the case, particularly in rural areas, where the distances you're covering are just too big to go underground. So I get that, and I don't think we should be unrealistic about it. But what you shouldn't do is have multiple companies all putting in their own infrastructure within visual distance of each other, you just share it, right? BT has to share its network with other operators. So should some of these newer startups.
Just comment on what we've been talking about with scooters and things. Diana does say, she mentions about where they're actually bought. She mentions a place where they bought and says that you can read this later. Are they illegal? They're illegal as soon as they touch the pavement, the place that are selling them. But Adam asks you what's your stance on Palestine and Kashmir, two very big topics here. Why is your leader, Rishi Sunak, supporting a genocide? You're supposed to be our MP and we're asking for a ceasefire which isn't being acknowledged.
Yeah, so I don't think it's helpful to use language like genocide because that's not what's happening. Obviously what's happening in Gaza is tragic, and I would love nothing more than to see a ceasefire. It would stop so much suffering, but a ceasefire has been offered. Within the last week, another ceasefire has been offered, but it's conditional on the release of hostages. We shouldn't forget that there are still Israeli citizens being held hostage more than 6 months on from when they were ripped from their homes. So, yes, I want to see a ceasefire. That is infinitely the best thing to happen. But this is about a negotiation, and both sides have to want it. And the situation in the Middle East more generally is incredibly worrying. Everyone will have seen the horrendous attack on Israel from Iran last Saturday night. There was no luck involved that was repelled. That was more than 300 drones, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, all fired towards the state of Israel, and it was the bravery and technological prowess of Israel with the United States, Great Britain, France, the Kingdom of Jordan, who all stopped that. So, yes, of course, I want to see a ceasefire in the region. I want to see peace and Gaza able to rebuild itself because, I've been to the West Bank. There is enormous potential there, and if you speak to a normal Palestinian person, they'll tell you all they want is to live a normal life. They've got the same dreams and aspirations and hopes and wants as everyone else. They want a family that can live safely and their kids can go to school. But you can't have that if you're constantly at war because the people who are supposed to look after you are using you as human shields. So, yes, absolutely want a ceasefire. In the intervening period, whilst Hamas aren't willing to go for one of those negotiated ceasefires with the release of hostages, my primary concern is getting aid into Gaza. Right, yeah. So we're doing far more. There are thousands and thousands of tons rolling in every day. We're now doing RFA drops. We're looking at sending more in by sea. I know that answer's not going to please everyone.
Well, I was going to say, I think you and Adam come at this from a different point of view, because Adam's coming back already saying, why is it taking over 50,000 people to die? And then he's talking about...
Well, hold on, yeah. Right. Adam, I just don't accept those numbers.
Yeah.
Right, so we should be... Hold on, before you jump in, right. These numbers, and they're being reported in the press, are numbers from a Hamas terrorist-run health ministry. So, on those numbers, not a single terrorist has been killed. Now, I don't think anyone thinks that is remotely realistic. So, is it terrible what's happening? Yes. But let's not pretend that that it is exactly as Hamas want people to believe.
Well, I was going to say, because it's basically saying the land is occupied illegally by Israel, and it's started way before the 70s. It's a bigger topic. I don't think you and Adam are going to agree on this topic at all.
No, and Adam, you're always welcome to come to one of my open surgeries or email me and ask for a Zoom call or a telephone conversation. But we're not going to agree. Right? We can agree on wanting a safe and secure Middle East that has a viable Palestinian state and a secure Israeli state. I think we can all agree on that. But we might disagree on how we get there.
Moving on, you're back on pavements and roads with this one. Have LCC found any more paving slabs to make more progress with Tan's turf?
So Town to Turf is progressing. Actually, I drove past it on the weekend, and it is looking much better round near the Kirby Hotel and all of that. It can't come quick enough as far as I'm concerned. So I think they're still on track to be done by summer. I have raised it again. I'm going to ask the cabinet member who I'm meeting tomorrow for another update. We've got to get it done. It does look better. I think we should be honest. It does look better, but it has been a pretty big nightmare getting it this far.
Yeah, Karen, again, you touched on potholes, but Karen's saying, why are they not filling potholes in Padiham?
Yeah, so they are. The problem is they're not filling them as fast as we would like them to. But report them all to me. Report them on the Love Clean Streets app. I'll keep raising with the council. I gave quite a long answer to potholes earlier.
Yeah, you did. On just back on the polls, Faye's saying they had a petition with hundreds of signatures, but no politician seemed to want to support the ones that want to support it. And then she's talking about a view that her dad had of Pendle Hill, and it's now lost. But
yeah, look, it's really difficult. I don't. Let me go away and look at the petition, but it's, as I said, it's really difficult because there's no immediate way to stop it. So, you will find politicians who are willing to jump up and down and say, I'll take the petition. But actually what you want is someone who's willing to put in the legwork to try and figure out a solution. That's why I spoke about whether they're complying with the code, whether they're complying with the requirement to share infrastructure, because that's the best way we've got of making sure that infrastructure is shared and we don't get streets full of additional poles, cabinets, etc.
Sandra asks, and Stuart's also saying, this is a good question, Sandra. She's asking, you invited people to fill out the online survey about ideas for what this town's money could be spent on. Making Burnley a better place to live, work and study. She's asking, so far, do you have a rough idea of how many people have completed the survey and what it's showing in terms of people's preferences?
So our next town board meeting is tomorrow. And so as a reminder, the town board includes the college, the university, private businesses, the council, me, the police, kind of all the people who have got an interest in listening to residents and making sure that we spend this £20 million properly and on what residents want us to do. So the next meeting is tomorrow. So at that meeting, I'll find out how many people have completed it. When I last asked, it was well into the hundreds. So I'm hoping we've crossed that threshold and well into the thousands.
700 last time.
Yeah, so
last week, I think.
Hopefully we're 1,000 plus. And there is still time to do it though. So if you are watching this and you've not done it, please do. We're going to go through some of the responses tomorrow. And there was a second half of Sandra's question.
Does it show people's preferences? I suppose they won't release that until...
So that's the kind of thing that we're going to go through tomorrow. We'll get an early site, but we've got a couple of months to go through this process to then come up with an investment plan that we submit to government based on all the feedback. So it's going to take us a couple more weeks and months to pull it all together. But I will give an update at some point next week after the board once we've been through it.
I have to apologise to Shanine. She has asked a question. I accidentally passed it. She's talking about the education system in Burnley. There are no school places and children are out of education for a long time. I presume this is in her own personal experience. Okay. She's not sure who to contact because she keeps getting thrown one place to another. So what's your advice to her?
Please contact me. Every single child should have a place at school. I am uncompromising on that fact.
You'll get a place for it.
I will move heaven and earth to make sure every child has a school place. I don't think there's a case yet of where a parent has come to me needing a school place and I've not managed to get one. So please drop me an email. I think I've put the contact, a link to the contact me form on the live somewhere. But if not, it's anthonyhigg.co.uk/contact.
Okay. Next one is, I'm going to call you Fran. What do you reckon about the security and crime issues that we're having in Burnley at the moment? I think she's referring to businesses being broken into. We've seen Boleros with that in the news. And then she's asking whether you will invest some of the £20 million towards that, basically tackling drugs and getting the streets safe from junkies is the language that Fran's used.
Fran, I think that is an excellent proposal. Like, you look at the things that make a difference to a town centre and the whole town, you know, what makes people proud to live here and want to live here and want to stay here. Big part of it is, do people feel safe? Is it safe? And, you know, I raised this with the police. They're doing a lot of work on this. They've increased the number of officers and PCSOs looking after the town centre. But there is definitely some work we can do using the £20 million long-term plan for towns to address crime and safety. Now, some of that might be CCTV in the right places and lighting. Yeah. Some of it might be, you know, do we want town centre wardens, which you'll find in some other towns and cities, people who work with the police, and it's an extra visible group of people, if you want, that just helps deter crime, work with shops and retailers and coffee shops and all of that. So yes, I'm 100% with you.
Okay, Chris is asking a bit of a technical question in my mind anyway. Basically, is the government going to take action to ensure London's city district remains LSE listings? Because if we lose more blue chip companies to the US, it might start a snowball effect and impact our economic performance and tax revenue.
Chris, a man after my own heart. You're right, it is quite complex. But if I put it in a nutshell, so that we don't bore everyone else on it. So everyone will have heard of the London Stock Exchange. It's where publicly traded companies, where companies are listed, publicly trade, so you can buy shares in them. So important for our economy that the London Stock Exchange remains a primary global exchange because it brings massive economic value to the UK. But we are in a global competition with the likes of New York, with the New York Stock Exchange and other global cities. The Chancellor of the Exchequer announced a review of some of our listing rules to make sure it remains competitive. And in fact, I had a conversation about this just the other day, this week. So, man after my own heart, Chris, yes, we are going to make sure that the London Stock Exchange and the UK remains a primary place. But we need some big listings to propel it back up the rankings.
Okay, this one's on childcare, and it came in a couple of days ago. It's about Taywood Nursery School.
Okay.
And apparently that an email has been sent informing all parents that from July of this year the nursery will no longer able to offer full-time provision and is changing to term time only. And the email states it's due to government underfunding. And the question is over the last 2-3 weeks there's been major announcements of huge investment in childcare and free childcare going up. So I guess what is this essentially?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. Government has announced a massive expansion of taxpayer-funded childcare, so 15 hours a week is being expanded, and we will get to the position next September where every family is entitled to 30 hours of taxpayer-funded childcare for children aged 9 months and above. Now that is a massive shift compared to where we were just a few years ago. That requires massive financial investment, a workforce expansion and all of that. And I don't underestimate how challenging that is for a childcare provider who's got to recruit the staff to offer it and make sure they're getting in the finances from the Department for Education to fund those childcare places. Now, I wouldn't say it's underfunded. I think the government has done a pretty good job of setting out the rates for funding. It's set them out for multiple years because that offers financial stability. I'm happy to look at it and go and visit the nursery. I was at one just, I think 2 weeks ago on the day the childcare offer expanded, and we spoke about the finances, and so I don't underestimate the challenges. But it is the taxpayer-funded offer of childcare is term time only. So there is an extra, it's 38 weeks a year, not 52 weeks a year, because all parents are entitled, parents in work, and this is about helping parents in work, are entitled to time off. And essentially it's the same as a school. So it's designed to marry those two things up. So it's an offer of taxpayer-funded childcare to marry up so that if you've got a child that's in school and a child that's too young for school, the child in school and the taxpayer free childcare offer means that mum and dad can go to work and manage it that way. But I'm happy to speak to the nursery offline if you drop me an email.
Cool. We can't finish this Facebook Live without talking about a big news item in Parliament this week, which is the ping pong that's taken place between the Lords and the Commons regarding the plan to stop illegal immigration. A number of people have mentioned it, and it's been a recurring theme on Facebook, on your posts on Facebook anyway. What's been going on in Parliament this week, where we are, and are the planes going to take off to Rwanda? That is the question that I keep getting asked by people. Yeah,
so I've written my Burnley Express column on this week as well, so if anyone picks up the Burnley Express, give it a read, although it's probably going to say exactly what I'm about to say. I am as frustrated as everyone watching this, thinking, just get on with it. Because that's what we should be doing. We should just be getting on with it. Yeah. And it is incredibly frustrating that the House of Lords has blocked this legislation at every possible turn. Now, obviously, we've got the block in the House of Commons of the Labour Party and the Lib Dems and the SNP and all that, but we've got a majority in the House of Commons, so we can deal with it. I think the stat today is the Labour Party have now voted against dealing with illegal migration through this route more than 100 times.
It doesn't surprise me.
And my question to them every time they vote against it is, well, what is your plan? Right? Because it's very easy for politicians to stand up and say, I don't like that, I don't agree with that, I don't think we should do it that way. Give us another option, right? This scheme is about saying to someone, if they enter illegally, right, so they turn up on a boat, they've flouted our migration rules, turn up illegally, we get them, we start to process them and say, right, well, you entered illegally and that's not okay. Right, so you almost want to go through it with Labour and other parties and go, right, so at that first base level, are you okay with that? Yeah. Are you okay with the idea that someone who enters illegally gets treated exactly the same? Because I don't think they should be. I think we should differentiate between someone who does the right thing and someone who does the wrong thing. And entering illegally is the wrong thing. There's nothing wrong with saying that. So if you go, no, actually, you should treat someone slightly differently if they've entered illegally, then you go, right, okay, well, we should send them home. Right, so someone enters from, they get on a small boat in France and they come here. My first response would be, where are you from? Because I'm sending you back to your home country. If they turn around and say, well, that's not safe for me, then we go, right, okay, well, it's still not okay that you arrived illegally, so we're going to send you to a third country. It's not the one you're saying you're from, because you've told us that's not safe, but we've got a third country. At the minute, Rwanda is that country, but we're working with other countries to increase that number. And if you're on the opposition side and you go, yeah, no, actually, you shouldn't enter illegally, well, what's the punishment? So my punishment is really clear. You get sent to your home country, and if that's not safe, to a safe third country. I think that's really logical, practical, and right. Labour obviously take a different view, but you're right about the ping pong this week. So we were hoping we would get this done this week because we've bashed it back so many times. You would expect the unelected chamber to go, well, the elected chamber has demonstrated its clear will and we're winning these votes with majorities of 70 plus. But unfortunately, the Labour Party, including Lord Khan of Burnley, who's a member of the local Labour Party, has decided to continue to block this. And so we're going to try and finish it next week. So we've had an email from the people who plan the business and the government whips to say on Monday we should expect a very late sit-in because we're going to try and finish it. So we're going to vote on all the stuff the Lords has sent us and we're going to knock it all back again. And then if the Lords insist, we're going to stay in Parliament on Monday night. And if they keep us there until midnight, then we'll be voting at midnight. And if they keep us there until 1 a.m, then we'll vote at 1 a.m, because we have got to get this done. And then we've allocated another day on Wednesday. So in the event that, we're going until silly o'clock in the morning and it's still not done, we'll go back on Wednesday and we'll finish it then. We have got to get this done. I will stay in there as late or as early as needs be to get it done, because I think it's the right thing to do. It's the only way we have a deterrent, because you need someone to know if you enter illegally, we're going to send you to your home country, and if you're telling us that's not safe, we're going to send you to a different one. So that's kind of
So it's happening.
It is happening. So will the flights take off? Yes, they've got to.
Yeah.
They've got to take off. That's how you get a deterrent.
I mean, I completely agree with what you've said there about the logic of it. What else? What else? If...
And this is a genuine offer, right? If people are watching this, you know, probably people who disagree with my politics and whatnot, and you're sitting there thinking, well, he's just wrong. I don't agree with the Rwanda scheme at all. Email me. Give me an alternative that will actually work, because to date, no one has given me one. You know, the Labour Party plan is we'll smash the criminal gangs. Well, we can all say that.
Yeah, by doing what?
I'm still none the wiser.
Or working with partners.
The only plan I've heard so far is to rejoin an EU scheme, and the EU have just signed up to a scheme that would essentially allow hundreds of thousands of migrants who enter the EU illegally to be dispersed across the continent or across the bloc. Well, that would include the UK now. I think we take our fair share of people in need, you know, whether it's from Ukraine or Hong Kong, Syria, Afghanistan. We've got a really proud record, and I won't allow political opponents to talk us down and say that somehow, because I want to control borders and make sure that our immigration rules are sustainable and right and not abusing the taxpayer, that somehow that makes us cruel, because I don't think it is.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. And on that, we're at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
There are no more questions that are coming in. Deborah says, thank you. Really good to hear about SSB and how you'll be there. Chris does make a point saying he worries about the Supreme Court on the topic.
Of Rwanda.
Yeah.
Well, the legislation, so when the Supreme Court made its decision last year, the legislation was drafted to deal with all of the points they made, and we then negotiated a new treaty with Rwanda, which is signed, which is all about dealing with those things. So if the Supreme Court blocks it, then they've come up with reasons that they've not told us before. And I think we need to ask some searching questions at that point about parliamentary sovereignty, because we represent the people, I represent all of you, and for as long as people tell me it's something they want sorting, I'm going to keep banging the drum and saying that's what we need to do. Yeah,
good man. Last thing, Karen's saying, it's just something to take to the town's board. £20 million pot of money, better out local veterans. That's what she wants to see. I mean, this Adam is really against you, Anthony. He's saying we're ignoring him now. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's all, So, lies and lies.
It's not lies, right? And then this is part of the problem, that you can't have a genuine discussion about facts and how you move forward, right? We're never going to solve these issues if people resort to, you know, the kind of scenes we've seen, shouting at people, shutting down debate. I'm happy to have the conversation. I want the conversation. I want to find a solution. It's just far too often there are people on the other side who don't want to find a solution and who just want to shout and say that any view that is not their view is not right. And that, to me, is not how a free society operates.
I've got to finish this on a positive then. Stuart, nice to see an MP speaking open, taking unfiltered questions live, and Sandra agrees with that, definitely. So I think that's it.
I'll keep doing them for as long as you want them.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay.
Yeah. See you all next time.
See you later.